Hello once again, dear viewers, and welcome to the Cult Emporium with myself, Rob, and my friend across the airwaves, Phil, who is in fact just a few miles down the road, but we can't stand the sight of each other, so we just broadcast from our own homes, really. So good evening, Phil, as it stands now. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes. And we've had the penultimate Doctor Who Flux, haven't we? The Survivors of the Flux, as it turns out.
We have, and I feel I know a lot more this week. I feel rather enlightened, and I think more was revealed than I thought was going to be revealed.
Well, I had to watch it again because you know me, I kind of take so much in and then can't remember the rest. So I watched it again and made a few notes, and it is coming together, isn't it? Slowly but surely, but it still leaves an awful lot to tie up next week. They've got about 50 odd minutes, 55 minutes, whatever, to tie it all up next week, which is still a big ask.
Yeah. So shall we get into it? Where do we find our characters? The Doctor had just become a statue at the end of last week. She'd become a weeping angel, which. She gets over pretty quickly this week. Well,
it's a huge non-cliffhanger because basically she's just teleported from one place to another, it seems to me, and the very fact she is turned into a weeping angel to do so is neither here nor there.
No, it just looks good last week.
Yeah,
and got everyone talking, and it's the sort of trick that they used to pull in the classic series. So I mean, I'm not going to be begrudging that because it made me want to watch this week. And then we find the remainder of the TARDIS team, Yaz and Dan, have been trapped in was it 1904? 1904. And they're trying to find a way of getting back. And there's a third now to the companions.
Professor Jericho. Eustachius Jericho.
Which I thought was lovely because, of course, we didn't know that was going to happen.
Now, Kevin McNally has long been a fabulous actor. I mean, he's been in so many things, and you can really tell that character experience coming to the screen, can't you, in his portrayal of Jericho?
Hmm. And it's just a lovely dynamic between the three of them, and you can see Yaz's growth. I mean, I wonder if maybe what she's been through during the flux may lead into her departure, that she'll go off and start saving the universe herself, because she's very much in that Doctor position, isn't she? She's kind of
she is when it goes away from Jodie, when they're separated. She does kind of take on those traits, doesn't she?
Yeah. And
they went to Mexico, was it? And somebody keeps trying to kill them. Who keeps trying to kill them? Because the bloke was. They went to Constantinople, didn't they? Then they went to Nepal for a funny little scene with an Indian guru type person, and then they went to the Great Wall of China. And after all that world traveling, they ended up in Liverpool.
Of course. And then I loved as well that they came up with the idea of, because the guru gave them the idea to get in touch with the dog, with Carvanista, and then Carvanista, when he gets the message, he just goes, "I haven't got time travel."
Yeah.
So it's all very good.
So that was one element of the episode, following them through 1904 for them to. I mean, I'm not sure what were they looking for actually. Tell me.
Oh, I was hoping you'd tell me.
They're searching for something, but they eventually were happy to be in Liverpool.
Well, they were looking. That was it. They were looking for a means to get back to the Doctor. Get back.
Oh, is that what they were looking for?
Yeah, back to the present day, and we found that in the tunnels.
The portal doors in the tunnels.
Yeah, poor man's Reece Shearsmith.
Yeah, yes.
What's the name of the chap who's digging the tunnels?
Joseph Williamson.
Joseph Williamson, yeah. So he's been wandering in and out, and then he appears on this ship that they're on, and Dan realizes that he's able to traverse, the boundaries.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and they end up in the tunnels in Liverpool, and fingers crossed, they're going to be reunited with the Doctor next week. This is going to, help them get back into the fight.
And in another element of the storyline, which was ongoing, we meet Farquhar, who seemingly founded the British end of the United Nations Intelligence Task Force, and he meets Prentice, otherwise known as the Grand Serpent, who's got some nasty deeds ahead of him. And we jump from 1958 to 1967. Where we have the voice of Nicholas Courtney in the background. How lovely was that to hear the Brigadier shouting at somebody?
I thought it was lovely. It's already. Part of me thinks that maybe Chris Chibnall is just trolling the fans, because. So this is 1967, and he said Corporal Lethbridge Stewart. He likes to shout. In 1968, it was the Web of Fear, and he was Colonel Lethbridge Stewart. So it's already like, how could he have got promoted in that space?
Pretty rapid promotion.
Yeah, and also he wasn't part of UNIT, or supposedly wasn't part of UNIT when in the Web of Fear. He was just from the Scots Guard. So. But you know what? It's just the unit dating controversy is already.
Well, I personally just love just that little moment, and it wasn't overdone. Like it wasn't like shoved down your throat. It was just a little moment that meant nothing to anybody else, but for the dedicated fans, it was just like a lovely moment from the past.
And then also we got the Doctor's. We got the TARDIS in a unit room.
We had
linking computer, which was all it was all calling up Third Doctor imagery.
Yeah, the lab.
I thought it was wonderful, and I thought Robert Bathurst was perfect, and I was really actually quite sad when he got killed, because there was already like wheels turning in my head. I was like, well, what if they brought him back as a sort of brigadier proxy and did like an alien invasion story set in the 1960s, but unfortunately he fell foul of the Grand Serpent, who I'm also really enjoying. I think Craig Parkinson is doing a really good job as
he
villain.
is.
And he's one of those actors that you think. I'm surprised that it took this long for him to get the nod in Doctor Who, because he's a real.
I'm still not quite sure what the Grand Serpent's ultimate motivation is.
No,
but then again, we have a whole episode to go, so that might become clear then. But eventually, we get to the almost modern day 2017 to when Kate Stewart unmasks him in effect. Just as his sort of disbanding unit.
Yeah, and this sort of ties into Stephen Fry's, as the head of MI6, his comments in at the beginning of Spyfall, when he said, Torchwood's gone dark, and funding as unit has fallen foul of funding. So it ties in, and you actually find that there's more of a reason for that, and it's just a plot reason, and that's. I don't know whether it was already in Chris Chibnall's head, or whether he's had second thoughts and decided, no, I want to bring UNIT back. But it ties in nicely with what we'd already heard in the background about UNIT.
Elsewhere, we've got Carvanista still about, and he recalls Bell's Lupari ship, doesn't he, to fill in the gap that's the shield is vulnerable. And Vinder, sorry?
Bellina Tamagotchi, that she's got.
Is that her name?
No. That's the baby. It's like she's got that little.
Oh yes, sorry, yeah.
Computer that's like it's like one of those toy pets from
Tigme. Is it called Tigme or something? I don't forget what it's called. Anyway, and then we've got Vinda, who encounters the Swarm Nazia and is eventually imprisoned in the passenger form, where he meets Diane very briefly. He meets Diane, who we have. Did we see Diane in last week? I don't think we did we? No. The week before we saw Diane. So that story arc is kind of still bubbling under there. And at the end of it all, it turns out, it seems to be that the Sontarans are the major invasion force there.
Yeah. Well, it's the opportunists, isn't it? And I think in the next time trailer we got flashes of Cybermen and Daleks as well. So I think, but I do appreciate that, because sometimes a Dalek can kind of swallow the story. When you introduce Daleks, it becomes a bit Dalek heavy. So I quite like that there are all these opportunists, but we're focusing on the Sontarans. It sort of makes it a bit special and unique to this season, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've said that Sontarans need a bit of a boost, need a bit of a reboot, and Flux seems to be it. So, any predictions for next week, do you think? Oh, and we haven't mentioned Tecteun and the Gallifreyan fob watch with the Doctor's memories.
It was there in plain sight, because everybody had been saying, is this woman the Doctor's mother? And actually, she sort of was, but not her biological mother. She's Tecteun, who of course we were introduced. And the more I've been thinking about it today, the creepier I found it, because Tecteun was experimenting on the Doctor. Kept killing her and forcing her to regenerate.
Yeah.
And yet she still called her mother, because that was all she'd known. It's a very disturbing idea when you think about it, really.
Do you think, just kicking this in the air, now we're all nerds and we rewatch the episode and pick it apart and stuff, but how do you think Joe Public is reacting to all these things? Because sometimes it is a little overwhelming, even for us Doctor Who fans.
I sort of look at. I didn't watch Line of Duty, but I was aware of the discourse that was going on around Twitter. I think if at this point, if you tried to watch episode 5, having not watched any other episodes of Flux, you would be baffled. But I think that having experienced this before, of having ask me questions about Doctor Who, I think if it grips the audience.
I get what you're saying about Line of Duty, but that's made for a much older audience than Doctor Who is generally.
Yeah. I think anyone who's engaged by it who's engaged by the performance, by the style, just by the presentation of it, would ask questions, would look into it, would read a book, read a Wikipedia page, and Harry Potter is just so dense, and his Dark Materials is so dense. A lot of children are sort of used to reading these big, young YA novels that are based on an entire fantasy world. So I wouldn't worry about them too much. I think maybe in the future, maybe Russell should go back to a sort of a more basic kind of presentation, but I wouldn't worry about the Joe Public too much. The appreciation indexes have been really good, so that's
that's the main thing. If people are genuinely enjoying it,
yeah.
So and next week's episode is called The Vanquishers, and as you say, it's got a lot to do, that episode.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how much is resolved, whether there's some threads. I mean, I've already predicted that I think the immediate threat of the Flux will get resolved, but maybe this division storyline will carry on into the
larger issues will continue.
Yeah, I mean, and it'd be interesting to see what memories are restored for the Doctor, if at all. I mean, if she gets them back, or whether this thread will keep dangling. I mean, I think in the end, the way it will be left is that there will still be mystery around the Doctor. It'll just be a new mystery, I think.
Fair enough. We will see next week. So, Survivors of the Flux, how many out of 10 are we going for Survivors of the Flux?
I'm going to grade it on the basis of did it do of what it was meant to do, and it was meant to move the plot forward and get me excited and make me watch next week for the resolution. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I
was thinking along very similar lines, 8 out of 10, but purely because there was some fine moments of comedy in which I think balanced nicely with all the complex themes that are going on in this Flux story, and I kind of like that. I think as a balanced episode, I think it worked very well.
Are you from Liverpool, Dan? You've never said.
And you've not asked me why I'm in monochrome.
Why are you in monochrome?
Because I haven't been colorized yet by the restoration team. That's why.
Very good.
I'm saving up for them.
Yeah, you're Invasion of the Dinosaurs Part 1, aren't you?
I am. Yeah. So the next week we might have some very dodgy color and kind of seeping in, not quite flesh colors, black and white come flesh colors seeping through.
Yeah, so, you'll be the DVD version next week, and then when we get to the New Year's special, you'll be fully Blu-rayed.
Oh gosh, yes, fully HD when we get to the special. But I will wear something fitting for the end of season next week. Well, I've got an audio recommendation this week, which I've been listening to in the early hours, and this time it's to do with the Ninth Doctor, Christopher Eccleston. And I think that was one of the big surprises last year, that Christopher Eccleston came back and reprised his Ninth Doctor for Big Finish, given lots of things that he'd said about the team he worked with and his time as the Doctor. But clearly he loves being the Doctor. I have to say that all the audios I've listened to with Christopher Eccleston have been spot on. He's nailed his performance from 2005 exactly. Not always the same with some of the other Doctors. I mean, you often get the feeling with Tom Baker, it depends what mood he's in as to how nailed he is of the Fourth Doctor. But Christopher Eccleston keeps hitting the ground running with some of these performances, and it really is, genuine Ninth Doctor stuff. And we've got 3 stories in this box set under the umbrella title of Lost Warriors. The first is The Hunting Season, which features a reunion with Annette Badland.
Oh, great.
And this time not playing not Geodude, what are they called? The
Margaret Blaine, the Slitheen.
Margaret Blaine, the Slitheen. Sorry, the name Slitheen went out of my brain just then. And she plays a cook, Mrs. Goose, in a large house with Alex Jennings, the great Alex Jennings as Lord Hawthorne. And his stately home is under siege by aliens. It's one of these stories where the bad guys aren't always as bad as you think. The roles are reversed. And I don't want to give too many spoilers away on these little recommendations, because I think part of the joy is listening to the various plot twists and stuff. And then, it's like the TV episodes. Until I've seen them, I hate somebody telling me exactly what's going on. I love somebody telling me exactly what's going on, but after the episode, but not before.
Yeah.
And then the second of the 2 stories is called The Curse of Lady Macbeth by Lizzie Hopley. And that in this story, it's an historical story where the Ninth Doctor ends up in Scotland to meet Queen Grouch, and played by Niamh Mackintosh, otherwise known as Lady Vasta of the Paternoster Gang. But she is Queen Grouch, and she is the original inspiration for Shakespeare's Lady Macbeth. And so we again, like all these stories set in the history, we have to have an alien presence there. I just wish somebody could do a fucking historical story for change. But it's good. It's a good, solid story. And finally, and perhaps most interestingly, we got a story by John Dorney called Monsters in Metropolis. And in this, the Ninth Doctor ends up in Berlin in 1922, and he's watching the making of the Fritz Lang sci-fi classic Metropolis. But instead, the surprise is that instead of the Futura, the girl robot in that, it turns out that it's a Cyberman.
Oh, right.
So history's being messed with here, and the Ninth Doctor must put it right. And so we've got Nicholas Briggs as the Cyberman. And so, I just want to say, Reno, three really strong stories, which Christopher Eccleston is absolutely brilliant in. And
which Cybermen voice does Briggsy do?
It's kind of moon-basy Cyberman, I think you call it.
Okay.
That kind of Cyberman, yeah. So, but yeah, tremendous. And it's not just the performances of the cast and the writing. It's all the effects that are brought in, the music. It creates the entire soundscape for you. You really feel when you're listening that you're in the moment of these stories, and that's what Big Finish do brilliantly. And so, if you are a fan of the Ninth Doctor, then please go and find Ninth Doctor Adventures Lost Warriors, which is out now, and I'm sure you will not regret that decision. So there we go, this week's audio recommendation. However, there's more to life than the Doctor Who world. What's happening on Discovery?
Well, let's take a trip to the final frontier this week. And so we had our next episode, and the title I've forgotten it, but so the second episode of season 4, and this very much felt like a sort of moving all the pieces into place for the rest of the season. It was a lot talkier than last week, and we got the different relationships. So chief among them is Saru, who is rejoining the Discovery. He is currently holding the rank of captain. And at the beginning, Burnham says that, you'll be getting assigned a ship, and he says that no, I would rather be your number one, your voice of reason. As you were there for me, I am going to be there for you.
Isn't that convenient for the series setup?
Yeah. And so we go to investigate the earth-shattering event, this spatial anomaly that destroyed Quajon. And I think David Jala is great at playing book, and he does a really good job of selling the emotion and the tragedy of having lost his home world. However,
there's a but here. Come on.
No, I think he's great. I'm glad that he got me to invest in it, because the depiction of Quajon previously has consisted of some CGI butterflies and 2 other people, and that's been running
about in the woods. Yeah.
Yeah, we've not really seen the facets of that world, but he does a really good job of selling it, and I think it was good to see Michael Burnham kind of on the back foot a little bit, because she doesn't really know what to do for him, and we get to see Book and Stamets, who are 2 characters that have never really bonded before, but both of them have got this. Both of them are able to pilot the spore drive, and the kind of the wary of each other, so they get to bond. And then the other thread, which I'm sure which had a nice little nod to Picard, is that the character of Adira, who is a Trill, has been throughout the past season been seeing visions of one of the previous hosts of their Trill symbiote. If that makes sense, you with me now?
Yeah, it kind of does, but don't go any deeper than that, because I'm stopping there.
Yeah, they've been having visions, and they've realised that Grey actually is still sentient and not just in Adira's head. So they're trying to build Grey a new body using Dr. Sung's technology from Star Trek Picard and Reeve. I'm sure that will not go as smoothly as hoped, but they were building a new body, and then the final bit is Tilly is suffering from what seems to be PTSD, and has been speaking to Dr. Culber about getting some therapy. So again, another thread that I think is going to, play further down the line. We'll see where our characters end up. So I would sort of give this one a 7 out of 10. It was solid, but perhaps a bit unremarkable.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, but as you say, it kind of felt like a link to something greater.
Yeah.
How marvelous! Well, there we go. That's it. We've wrapped that up quite well, I think. And we'll be back next week with more about the Discovery. And I'm assuming, quite a big talk about what has concluded the Flux storyline and whether we're totally happy with that.
Indeed, it's all to play for. It could really land. It might not. I mean,
I'm expecting a tease as well into the Christmas special. That's what I'm expecting. Whether it just be a title or an image or a moment, I'm expecting a little bit of something.
Or a David Tennant style. What?
So I'm going to cross the void beyond the mind, the empty space that circles time.
Know me. Am I
the Doctor? Yes. Well, I am. Look, money well spent on the internet, I'm sure.
And I'm just Harry Sullivan, and
well,
I'm in the seal.
Harry Sullivan kind of on leave by the look of it. But anyway, we'll have lots to say next week. So thanks for listening to our little chatters, and stay safe out there. And we'll see you on the Cult Emporium about this time next week. Yeah. Okay. Make it so.